On a farm in the valley, the tractor faced a new challenge. After several weeks of rain, the roads leading to the fields had become muddy and difficult to drive on. The farmer decided to pave the main road so that the machines could move between the farm and the fields without any problems. This task required not only strength but also precision, so the tractor was the ideal candidate, even more precise and efficient. The yellow tractor was assigned to transport gravel and rocks from a nearby gravel pit. He hitched up a large trailer and set off. The gravel pit was on a hill, and the road to it led through steep inclines and narrow bends. When he reached the gravel pit, the loading of heavy gravel and rocks began. The loader lifted the material efficiently, and the tractor watched as the trailer filled to the brim. After loading, the tractor started back, more carefully this time, because the load was heavy and the road down was steep. The engine held power, and the wheels rolled steadily on the slippery surfaces. Upon arrival, the tractor carefully spread gravel on the designated section of road. Using additional tools, it hardened the surface, making the road even and strong. The stones were laid carefully, each layer strengthening the route that all the machines would soon drive on. When the job was done, the tractor slowly drove over the newly paved road, checking its quality. The road was smooth and ready for use. The tractor happily headed towards the farm, knowing that now working in the fields would be much easier, and he had helped everything run more smoothly.
was the new farmer on the farm. He had just moved in and already completed his first task, fixing a broken fence near the pasture. He was proud and ready for more.
Good job.
The next morning, Barney climbed onto his tractor and set off to check the farm to see if another fence might need fixing. As he drove across the meadow, something caught his eye. Lying in the grass was a large white egg. It wasn't in a nest, and there were no signs of any animals nearby. Barney stepped closer and looked carefully. The egg moved slightly.
What are you doing here?
He murmured to himself. Barney didn't want to leave the egg all alone out in the open.
What if it got cold? Or if something stepped on it by accident?
He knew he had to act. He carefully drove back to the barn and grabbed a few big bundles of soft, dry hay. On his trailer, he made a cozy nest, warm, safe, and cushioned from every side. When everything was ready, Barney gently picked up the egg and placed it exactly in the center of the hay. Then he drove it to a warm shed where it would be safe from the wind and cold. All day long, Barney kept checking on it. Nothing happened at first, until suddenly crack. A small line appeared, then another, and finally, the egg split open. It was a chick, but not just any chick. It was an ostrich chick, with big curious eyes and soft gray fluff. It blinked at Barney and let out a gentle squeak. Barney was surprised but also relieved. Now it made sense. The egg must have come from the ostrich farm nearby, just across the hill. One of their birds probably laid the egg a bit too far from home, and no one noticed it was missing. The little ostrich looked healthy and full of energy. It stood up on wobbly legs and immediately started following Barney around like he was its new best friend.
Well, I guess you found the right farm after all, little one. Let's get you back where you belong.
After a while they reached the neighboring farm. The chick ran happily toward its family, reuniting with the other ostriches. Barney watched with a warm smile, proud that he could help.
After a snowy night, when the farm was covered in a thick layer of snow, the tractor decided that its task would be to clear the road to the field, but also the entire farm. The sight of the farm covered in a blanket of white was beautiful, but a bit overwhelming. The barn, garage, bridge, and gazebo disappeared under a white curtain. Even the paths that led to the house were barely visible. One cold winter, the farm, covered in snow, seemed to be asleep. Snowdrifts filled every corner of the yard, and the cold air creaked under shoes and tires. The animals in the barn and stable were safe, but the farm lacked a place to hide from the snow during winter work. In the middle of the yard stood a tractor, the unsung hero of many challenges. Although winter was in full swing, the tractor had a new task ahead of it, building a small shelter that could serve as shelter from the winter elements. Winter was in full swing on the farm. Snow had been falling steadily for several days, covering the entire yard, fields, and roads. A smaller utility tractor, which had been trying to deliver beets to silos, had become stuck in one of the snowdrifts in the field. Now it needed help. In the garage, the main tractor was resting after the previous day's hard work. However, when the news of the smaller colleague's problems came, it was immediately put into operation. It had a plow mounted on the front and a tow rope attached to the back, ready for any challenge. The tractor moved across the farm toward the field where a smaller tractor was stuck. Once there, the tractor saw its smaller colleague, which had almost completely disappeared under the snow. Using the tractor's tow hitch, he connected the rope to the frame of the buried tractor. Slowly, with force and precision, he began to pull the tractor out of the track. The snow resisted, but the tractor's powerful wheels refused to budge. After a few minutes of effort, the smaller tractor was free and could continue unloading the beets in the silos. After the rescue operation was completed, both tractors returned to the farmyard. The snow was still falling, but thanks to their efforts, the farm was passable again.
was straw time on the farm. After a day of mowing, large bales of straw were neatly stacked in the field, ready to be hauled away. The tractor knew it had a busy day ahead of it, because it was his job to get all the bales into the barn before the rain came. Early in the morning, 2 tractors attached a suitable trailer and a Cyclops loader and headed out to the field. At last the straw was safe, neatly stacked in the barn, dry and ready for winter. Every bale had its place, so the supplies could be used without any problems in the coming months.
Shows a variety of tractors in action, performing tasks in different settings. It starts with a morning on the farm, where a green tractor begins work. Each vehicle moves smoothly, and the animation emphasizes their maneuverability. The colors are vivid, and the surroundings are full of details.
have an important task, picking ripe red tomatoes straight from the garden beds. But to do it right, we'll need a tractor, a wooden trailer, and some large sturdy crates for the tomatoes. Barney climbs into his green tractor and heads off to work. Barney walked into the greenhouse, carrying an empty crate. He looked around at the plants full of ripe, red tomatoes and said with a smile,
All right, let's get started. Time to pick these beautiful tomatoes.
Farmer Barney was just checking the fuel level in his tractor when he suddenly heard a familiar moo.
What's going on?
He muttered, turning toward the road. And then he saw her. Toja the cow was slowly walking right through the middle of the farm, glancing around like she was looking for an adventure.
Toja, what are you doing?
Barney called out. Without a second thought, he jumped into the cab, started the engine, and drove after his curious companion. Toja, with what looked like a cheeky smile, picked up the pace, passing the barn and heading straight toward the carrot patch. As soon as he got close to the cow, Barney realized that without a special trailer, he wouldn't be able to get Toja back to the pen.
Well then, Toja, if you're done with your little stroll, let's take you back in comfort.
Then he turned the tractor around and drove to the barn to get the animal transport trailer.
Decided to build a new shelter for the tractors. The previous shelter was already too small, and the coming winter required a solid place where the machines would be safe from rain and snow. The tractor, as the main character of the story, knew that he had an important task ahead of him. To build the shelter, he needed wood, which could be found in the nearby forest. The farmer hooked up a large trailer to the tractor and sent it on its way. When everything was ready, the construction of the shelter began. Tractor watched with satisfaction as the new place of shelter grew before his eyes. Every beam and plank was carefully fastened, and the shelter took shape. After some time, the construction was completed. The new shelter was solid and spacious, ready to accommodate not only the tractor, but other machinery as well. The farmer smiled with satisfaction at his work, and the tractor proudly drove inside, knowing that thanks to his work, the farm now had a safe place for its vehicles.
About 3 agricultural machines. The fertilizer spreader, seed drill and cultivator are 3 key machines that work together to ensure healthy plant growth in the field. The fertilizer spreader spreads nutrient-rich fertilizer that strengthens the soil, making it more fertile and ready for new seeds. The cultivator then turns the earth over, mixing the fertilizer with the soil, which improves its structure and aerates it, preparing ideal conditions for sowing. Finally, the seeder sows the seeds with precise precision, ensuring that they are evenly distributed and deeply rooted. These machines working together is essential to guarantee abundant and healthy harvests, showing how important cooperation is in agriculture. Okay, so let's get these machines ready. At the beginning, the cultivator drives. Moving strongly and stably across the field. Its powerful teeth dig into the soil, breaking up clods and mixing it to improve the soil structure. The cultivator busily turns the soil over, aerating it and preparing ideal conditions for sowing. Each pass creates an even and soft surface, ready to receive the seeds that will soon be sown by the seeder following closely behind. Then it's time for the seeder, but first it needs to be filled with corn seeds so that it can spread them evenly over the field. This is a key stage in the sowing process, which requires precise operation because it determines whether the seeds will be placed in the soil at the right depth and with the right spacing. Make sure that the seeds are dry and clean to avoid problems with the seeder mechanism. After filling the device, you can start working, making sure that the machine moves along previously designated sowing lines, which will ensure even distribution of plants in the field and optimal conditions for their growth. Finally, it's time for the fertilizer spreader. So we start filling it with the appropriate amount of fertilizer, in accordance with the planned dose for a given field. This is an extremely important stage that aims to provide plants with the necessary nutrients that support their proper growth and development. Care must be taken to ensure that the fertilizer is evenly distributed, which prevents nutrients from being too concentrated in one place and lacking in another. Before filling the spreader, it is worth checking the technical condition of the machine to make sure that all mechanisms are working properly. After completing this activity, the spreader is ready for work, and we can start fertilizing the field, which will significantly affect future crops and plant health. After the field is prepared in this way, our corn will have optimal conditions for growth and development. Thanks to precise sowing of seeds and even distribution of fertilizer, the plants will have access to the necessary nutrients and water. Preparing the soil provided the appropriate structure, which will allow the corn roots to develop freely and draw the necessary substances from the soil. Now we can hopefully expect that our crop will be healthy, strong, and produce abundant harvests. It is also important to ensure proper hydration and protection of plants against pests and diseases in subsequent farm amidst green fields and golden cornfields. A decision was made. It was time to build a doghouse. The owners of the farm decided that their faithful quadruped deserved a comfortable shelter. 2 irreplaceable tractors were to be used for this task. A red one and a green one, each equipped with special tools for the job. The red tractor was the first to leave the garage. Its task was to prepare the area for construction. It easily attached the attached shovel and set to work. a trench with precision, creating the foundations for the doghouse. Its powerful hydraulic arm and sharp bucket effortlessly penetrated the soil, removing the earth with centimeter precision. Each depression was carefully leveled, creating a perfectly rectangular space that was to become a solid foundation for the future shelter. The red tractor worked methodically, step by step, making sure that the trench was deep and wide enough to ensure the doghouse's stability and durability for many years. Once the area was ready, a green tractor drove into the warehouse to pick up the appropriate goods for our booth. The green tractor brought the wooden planks and other building materials that were needed to create a shelter for the dog. He skillfully lifted the heavy beams and placed them in place, creating a solid structure. And that is how our doghouse was created. Thanks to the cooperation of the red and green tractors, each element of the structure was precisely placed in its place. Solid wooden walls, carefully cut and connected, created a safe shelter. The roof, made of strong planks, provided protection from rain and wind. Every detail of the doghouse, from the stable foundations to the roof finish, was the result of joint work and commitment. When the work was finished, the doghouse stood proudly in its place, ready to accept its new tenant. And golden fields lived a small tractor. Although it was not the largest or strongest, it was always ready to work and full of enthusiasm. Its red body gleamed in the sun and its wheels turned happily as it set off on another adventure. Eagerly entered the orchard, where baskets full of apples awaited him. One by one, he carefully placed them on his small trailer. When the trailer was full, the tractor slowly moved towards the fruit market. The road was bumpy, but the small tractor, with determination and precision, avoided all obstacles. There was a lot of noise and activity on the vast farm, where fields stretched to the horizon. It was a show day, and the main hero of the event was a large modern tractor, which was to show off its impressive capabilities. The tractor, gleaming in the morning sun, drove out of the garage. Its powerful wheels were about to cross the field, and the spectators gathered nearby watched in amazement. The machine, new and shiny, reflected the sun's rays, creating gleaming reflections on it. The tractor was the pride of the farm, equipped with the latest technology that made field work much more efficient and less tiring. Several tasks awaited it in the field. The first of these was to evenly distribute the hay. The tractor turned on a special device that began to rotate at an impressive speed, scattering the hay across the entire surface of the field. The sight was spectacular. Hay was floating in the air, creating golden cascades in the summer wind. Its engine roared with a deep, resonant sound that echoed off the surrounding hills. Every movement was smooth and precise, and its powerful wheels easily overcame uneven terrain. The tractor then set about its next task. It attached a large, heavy straw baler and began to form huge bales. As the tractor slowly moved forward, its engine roared with a deep, resonant sound that echoed off the surrounding hills. Its every movement was smooth and precise, and the powerful wheels easily overcame the uneven terrain. The baler worked efficiently, and the straw bales came out one after another, even and perfectly shaped. The tractor, moving across the field, precisely arranged the bales in long rows, ready for transport. Finally, the tractor had to transport the bales to the warehouse. Maneuvering with precision, he drove up to each bale, lifted it with a special handle and loaded it onto the trailer. When the trailer was full, the tractor headed for the warehouse, leaving a tidy field behind. Onlookers, both children and adults, watched the whole process with bated breath. The tractor, despite its powerful build, moved with grace and precision, showing how much can be done with one machine. It was a day full of impressions and emotions. The tractor, the hero of the farm, showed its extraordinary skills, performing work with precision and grace that no one expected. It easily coped with every task, and each operation was a demonstration of modern agricultural technology and engineering. A fire broke out in the field where a large straw baler was standing on the farm. All the people on the farm were alarmed, and the fire spread quickly, threatening the entire crop. Then a fire truck pulled onto the scene. Its red bodywork gleamed, and blue lights flashed on the roof. Without a moment's hesitation, it headed toward the burning press. But first it had to connect a large water tank.